welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car is the Jaguar F-Type Coupe. You see behind me the P450. I'm just intrigued with this model that's come out at a slightly lower horsepower, but it's still V8 supercharged engine. Before we get going, I just want to mention why the lighting might be a bit weird. We've got a big power cut. We've had a rain event over the weekend and it's knocked us out of electrics, and I'm not going to fix it until tonight, and this car is going back later today, so we're going to record this with not a lot of light in here. I've got some help from my bikes. I knew it was a good reason to have all the Dakar bikes here, so they're all shining lights, and hopefully that'll give us a bit more light and the doors open and we'll crack on. Right, back to the Jaguar F-Type. Now, I wanted to get this car actually in convertible form, but there wasn't one. So I've got the coupe, and the reason for doing that, because the last video I did was that Aston Martin Vantage Roadster, which was all great fun, but I did stumble on the price of the car. The particular example we had was £149,000 with the options on it. I thought, wow, that's a lot of money for a front engine V8 rear drive car. I looked up what the Jaguar F-Type Coupe was, and they'd come out with this P450 version, and this car lists at £69,990 on the road. Even with all the extras that the press department always put on cars, it comes out at £76,635, half the price of that Aston Martin Vantage. Yes, it's not a convertible, but they only charge, well, the convertible version is £75,505. So that is half the price of that Aston Martin Vantage we had in. So I was just intrigued how they would actually compare. And the F-Type, I sort of know, because I've obviously had the P7, the Project 7 Jaguar F-Type. That came out in 2015, so I've had it 5 years. And if I look back, the very first time I drove the F-Type was in this issue of Evo, and that was June 2013. So it's been around a while, but what I couldn't get over is when I actually checked the price of the V8 version of the F-Type when we first tested it, £79,985 and 488 horsepower. The 450 on this referenced the horsepower. It's 450 horsepower, this one. So this is like going back to what the F-Type was, the V8 version, V8S, was back in when it first launched in 2013. So anyway, let's go and have a closer look. 7 years into its life, the F-Type has just received its sort of first refresh and this redesign that adds these very different front lights. There's sort of the little LEDs, much slimmer than what the F-Type was first launched with. It had the xenons. If I move over to the P7, you can see these has eyes, as it were. Very different. And also the redesign of the grille, which is now an open grille. It used to have a bar across here that the number plate used to sit on. Now they've gone, as they did on the P7 again, a sort of open grille like that. But I think they've made it almost too big. There's an Audi-esque look about it, and I sort of want to like it, but I'm not sure if I like it as much as the P7. But maybe over the regular F-Type it is an improvement because it gets rid of that bar. But it does look modern and fresh. This does not look a 7-year-old design, and I particularly I've always loved the rear of the F-Type Coupe. It's so clean, and it's really stood the test of time, especially when I had that Vantage. Was just a bit messy, shall we say, at the back. There's just a clean, really nice look about it. It's the thing, it's like a Pininfarina design, when they always used to design in curves and it was sort of dateless. If you get design right, well, it stands the test of time, and I think the F-Type Coupe is just one of those. I mean, it looks aggressive also, the quad pipes coming out the back that sort of hints at the menace of the supercharged V8, what that might offer once it's fully wound up. 20-inch wheel size. Same size as the P7. Somehow they don't look super aggressive, while the P7 wheels and tyre combination just look that much bigger, chunkier. Whether it's the wheels or not, I don't know. Just working down, I can't get over the sort of length of the design of this headlight, but I suppose with the 4 individual LED lights in, they have to do it. There's vents here on the bonnet. They're real vents because of that supercharged V8. It's to get rid of the heat at the top of the engine. That's what they're doing. Come down the side. This is sort of slightly slimmed down over the first version of F-Type. Black sill extensions as well. Mirror looks identical, all black finish outside. Just clean design everywhere you look on this one. But I just want to pop the bonnet because it's got a unique feature, the F-Type, and it folds forward, this one, so a great big slab of aluminium. If you come round here, you'll see, to get the bonnet line as low as they could, because the engine is quite high, being a supercharged V8, the supercharged is sort of on top of the engine here. So they were challenged with this pedestrian crash legislation that you need this gap above the bonnet so that he doesn't hit a hard point when he headbutts your bonnet. And how they did it are these. There's airbags label here. What on earth they mean, an airbag there? Well, actually, what that does, if you hit a pedestrian, that airbag pings the bonnet up, and it gives it more space between there and the engine, and that's how they got around, and that's how they kept the really low bonnet line, or made it as low as they could. Right, I can see the lights on the Jaguar bike starting to fade, so I'm challenged with the lighting here. Let's take it outside, take it for a drive. Yeah, just before I get in and drive off, just wanted to show you this rear design, and in particular, I love the way they're now doing these in black. I think it looks so much better than when they had them in chrome before. This one has powered tailgate. So there you go. Well, it's a reasonable size boot, I suppose. I'm trying to think what's under there. Yeah, you've got a hidden little box in there to keep your valuables in or something. But yeah, all electric on this. I think that's an option. It's about a £400 option. So the sound effects, there's some chickens. We're next door to the chickens and they've all come to have a look at this Jaguar as well. Then at the side, press that, out pop the door handles. I think they work pretty well, and then to lock the car you just do that and then it's locked. Yeah, compared to launch F-Type, not a lot has changed in here. Big change is actually when it all lights up and we have a dash without true instruments. We've got a binnacle and just a electronic readout there. To start, you have this pulsing start button here, which I'll press now. And one thing is how quiet it is compared to previous F-Type. I love the theatre of this just rising up, the vents come up there. But something they seem to be very proud of in the sort of the blurb that comes with this car, I actually got a flyer from my dealer saying new F-Type launch with soft start. It's much quieter. They were raucous, the first versions of V8 F-Types. There is an exhaust button, so you can make it a little louder, just a slight thing. It's the gas particulate filters that have made the huge change with the exhaust sounds, and it seems that this supercharged V8 is particularly affected in it. Some cars don't seem to be quite so affected. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice place to be in here. The seats, this is 12-way adjustable electronic seats on here. I think these are an upgrade. I've got the sports seats on the P7. I would highly recommend them. And they're the same on the P8. I think you can get the P8 seats now in the F-Type, and I don't know, I think they're absolutely superb seat. One of the best standard seats sort of available, manufacturer seats. Here there's this strange thing, it's like a grip handle when you go, oh my lord, it's so scary. Weirdly, I think dual climate control is an option as well, but it's only a few hundred. Again, it's got Apple Play and things like that on here. I think if I continue through, yeah, Apple Play, there's dynamic, that won't work unless I have it in dynamic mode. And I can adjust engine and gear shift, steering, suspension, that sort of thing. We'll come on to that a bit later, I think. So 8-speed automatic on this Meridian sound system. There's quite an upgrade. It's got the 12 speaker system on this one. Another slight change, this door handle, you probably can't see it because it's black. There used to be silver, but it's now black, so it sort of disappears. And every time you get a passenger that gets in, they can't work out where the door handle is, because it was blindingly obvious when it was sort of chrome finish or aluminium finish, but now they've made it black, you can't see it. Anyway, there you go. little tour round. I'm going to take it out the village onto some better bits of road. But yeah, the initial thing you get in is this is sort of easy and quieter than I remember, but has it still got that wild side? Well, that's what I'm keen to find out. Still in standard mode. If I just set up here, yeah, you have to remember that there is a 5-litre supercharged V8 up the front, and if you're clumsy with throttle, even with all the traction control, everything's switched on, it will light up for a moment, and then the stability control takes over. But there is no mistaking the delivery of torque is instantaneous. And I say this is in its quiet mode, and I'm going slightly over the speed limit. I'll slow down. Right, there we are, 60 on my noisiest bit of road. There is a bit of road noise there, but it's not too bad. It's nothing like at Porsche levels. But there is none of this exhaust and pops and crackles and that sort of thing going on. It's like the F-Type has suddenly gone to finishing school and learnt some manners, and doesn't feel like he has to show off quite so much in normal mode. So I suspect it might be a little bit different when we get out and we're in dynamic. But so far, just the initial impression is this is much more civilized than I was expecting, and the steering's nice too. There's just a nice feel, center action, very soft lever, the actual feeling of the rim as well. Just feels connected in a way. It's honed with your initial thought. You're not thinking, oh, it's electric rack, it feels a bit odd. No, it feels very natural, and just giving you information, even though we're just trundling down the road and coming into Burford. Of course, the regular stalks as well. No crazy buttons on the wheel. There's just the things to control. Well, what I'm staring at on the dash, you can have map or single dial or double dial, as I've got it at the moment. You've got cruise control and that sort of thing on here as well. It's funny that F-Type is one of those cars, when it came out, I absolutely understood its positioning. It was this fun roadster coupe, and it was sat below the sports old gentleman's Jaguar, which was the XK at the time. So that was the 2+2 coupe that was meant to compete with the Porsche Turbo perhaps, or Mercedes coupes and that sort of thing. F-Type was fun, Boxster, perhaps lower rungs of 911 Cayman, but the pricing was always a bit steep and quickly went up. And then the XK disappeared, and suddenly, well, was this the flagship sports car? Was this the most expensive Jaguar in the range? And it suddenly became a different model. And then they introduced a 4-cylinder one, lower down, reduced the price and things. And I think it all got a bit confusing, because right at launch, the V8 was a mighty tempting sort of alternative to Aston Martin. Aston Martin, I was looking at that test 2013. We had there, it beat that on the fun factor and also on dynamically as well back in 2013. But the Aston at that point was £98,000 for the V8S, when the V8 was sitting at 79, so 20,000 premium over the Jaguar, and that felt about right. What I'm thinking now, how does this car compare at 69,000 compared to the Aston now, which admittedly has got 60 horsepower more than this car, but the price point has gone ballooning right up, and it's a, well, what is it? It's £50,000 gap to this. Or if you take the V8, the R version, which is about 80,000, then it's still a £35,000 gap to the Aston. It's sort of suddenly doubled, almost tripled with this car. Right, I'm going to select dynamic, which I do via this thing here, and gets a checkered flag and it goes a bit red on the dash, that sort of thing. Still in auto, still normal on that side. The other thing I want to just mention is the weight. This car, they say, weighs 1660 kilos, and the same for the Roadster. I'd like to check that. Well, the Aston, today's Vantage Roadster I had in, was 1628 dry. So this is actually about 50-60 kilos lighter than the Aston, which is a bit of a surprise. Right, we're coming out of Burford. Let's just see what happens up here. Right. There's a bit. Yeah, there's a bit more of that old style Jaguar R growl, that V8 supercharged, distinctive gruffness and pops and crackles. So it's still there if you do wake everything up. I'm noticing the 450 horsepower rather than the 575 of my P7, which is just wild. But there is there's a relaxed feel. The Aston, more rebellious sort of feel to it. Yes, it had that extra chunk of horsepower, but it's significantly more torque. This is torque limited to 580 Newton meters. When the R version, it ups it 700 Newton meters. Dramatically more torque in the R version and in the Aston. But you're not feeling that short change, it has to be said. I'm going to pop it over to sport. I'm going to select manual just by touching the paddle. Yeah, there are, even in dynamic, I'm not getting those mad pops and bangs anymore. There's still a bit there, turn in here. Yeah, flashing dials saying, time to change up. Ride's good as well. Much better than the Aston, even though I'm in, what am I in? I've got, right, I haven't put dynamic suspension on, so I'm going to put dynamic suspension on. And this is a particularly bumpy bit. Yeah, no, very definitely a usable version of dynamic suspension on here. What's quite nice is you can use the torque, the manual on 3000 RPM, plenty of push. It's lovely riding this seam of torque from this supercharged engine. It's a star turn of this engine. It's when you get into a turbocharged engine, and that Aston was all over the place. Sometimes it's on boost, sometimes it wasn't. Let's just try it through here. The pressure dealt with beautifully. In we go. It's turned in there nice. Through this quick right left. Lean on that outside. Yeah, it's a very pleasant place to be. It does exactly what you expect on the tin. It's a front engine rear drive coupe that has enough power, enough grunt just to overload the rear, but not an excessive crazy way that the R used to do when it first came out. This feels much more composed and much more capable of handling itself, but the damping needs special mention. It's just superb down here. Well, let's summarise this car. What don't we like about it? Start with the dislikes. Well, the one part of me just wonders if they've gone back too far. Have they actually made it too civilised? It's a fine line, because I like rebellious sort of characterful cars, but I would imagine that initial startup you used to get from the Jaguar V8R was a complete pain. There was no escape from it. Same with my Project 7. Quite often I really don't want it to pop and bang and growl in that sort of nature. This one doesn't. This has this soft start, so it's sort of a criticism, but it continues on in that vein, but it's not as rebellious as it was. Some will see that as a good thing, some as a bad thing. Next thing, I always get resistance from friends when I say, oh, I'll take that, and it's like an instant turn off when you mention the name Jaguar. I don't understand it, I really don't. But I think a lot of it has to do that they don't have, just going around here, I want to try it around here, dive into there. Yes, it's quite entertaining, this car. Right, I think it's the lack of motorsport that goes along with Jaguar. If you know, lots of friends in the good old days pre-CV wanted to go off to Le Mans for the crazy weekend. When was the last time you saw a production Jaguar storm down the straight, the Mulsanne Straight, or you'd see it racing at Le Mans? Decades ago. You go and see the Astons, you see Porsches, Ferrari, all those cars, never a Jaguar, and it's come disconnected from the true sporting brand, which I think is such a shame, because actually as a road car they're really nice to live with. But I think, yeah, that motorsport connection, I think it's such a shame it's not there. Likes. Well, contrary to what I was saying about the exhaust and startup, now this is a very easy car to live with. So easy to live with. It just works easy. Price is right. It's good looking. My goodness, it's good looking. Lots of people have commented on the look since I've had this with me, and you just scratch your head why it's not sort of considered more when people are looking to buy a sports car. Another like is just the chassis dynamics. It's challenging. I'm getting all the information I want. I like the way that it has this ability to overpower the rear end, but it's under control. I've got a very natural steering feel. I can feel what's happening around. I don't feel intimidated by it. And then the big like, I think, is the price. 69,000 for a supercharged V8 Jaguar coupe that looks this good. That actually sounds good value to me, and particularly so when you see where the 992 has disappeared off to, and the Aston Martin Vantage. They are well into the hundreds and something now, while this has come down in the other direction. 69,000 or 75,000 for the convertible. And the thing I've learned having the Project 7 is they're dirt cheap to run as well. I've had the P7 is 5 years old. I've had 2 services done in that time, and the total service bill is £860 for those 5 years of motoring. Nothing done under warranty, just as easy as that. I mean, it's a different experience going to the Jaguar dealership than perhaps the glossy Aston Martin dealership, but it's, you know, you just then have the much lower bills. Off it goes. Yes, 4.4 to 60 this car, when the Aston's 3.7, so there is a difference there. It's 180 mile an hour top speed, so it's not exactly slow. And then there's a sort of toughness about it. I took Project 7 wheel off once and it was really heavy. Couldn't believe how heavy it was. And I asked one of the engineers, what on earth, why is this wheel so heavy? And he says, oh, that's all to do with the curb strike. And it has to have the ability to hit a curb at 45 miles an hour and not bend and not damage all suspension. And it turns out that a Jaguar has the same sign-off requirement as Land Rover. So that Range Rover and Defenders that charge over those rock crawls and have to have that really strong suspension, this car's got the same. It's a Jaguar. I don't know why Jaguar don't make more of it, because it could be sold as sort of the world's toughest sports car, a bit like when VW dropped the Golf, didn't it? You used to remember that ad, and it sort of dropped from above the camera shot, bounced a bit, and said, yeah, tough, super tough VW Golf. It has that robustness about this car as well, which partly explains why it's not lighter than you'd like it to be. So in conclusion, I've enjoyed my time with this. I would definitely look at the convertible version before I signed up for that Aston Martin Roadster. Because I just think you save yourself £75,000. £75,000 buys you a lot of holidays, a lot of trips abroad, some fun, you know, just do some fun things with the car. Because the difference in the car is a lot closer than you think. So yeah, it's been nice to revisit. I'm so pleased that this car continues. I mean, they've brought the building of this V8 engine back in-house, so it's got several years ahead of it. So there you go, that's the F-Type P450, this new lower horsepower supercharged V8. Not exactly short of horsepower. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing, more videos coming along.
very soon.